Everybody starts. But how many finish? We live in a world that glorifies beginnings. The excitement of a new plan. The thrill of a fresh idea. The rush of motivation when you declare, "This time I'm serious." But motivation fades. Plans get messy. Life pushes back. And that's where most people stop. Not because they aren't capable. Not because the goal isn't worth it. But because they haven't learned how to cross the invisible line that separates starters from closers. Here's the truth: starting is emotion. Finishing is decision. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Persistence is the power that keeps you going when everything else says stop." That's not just a nice quote. That's the truth behind every legacy ever built. Everyone gets the same first page. Only a few keep turning them. So if you're tired of being the person who always begins with fire but ends in ashes, this is your wake-up call. This is the moment you shift from starter to finisher. Let's start with the first mindset you must lock in. 1. Stop worshiping the spark. Respect the grind. The spark feels good. The rush of starting something new makes you feel like progress is happening. But it's an illusion. It's not the first step that defines you. It's the 1,000th. It's waking up on day 30 when no one is watching, when your energy is low, and still doing the work. The world rewards closers, not dreamers. That doesn't mean you shouldn't dream big. It means you must build systems that outlast your moods. Hill called this organized effort. Not chaotic energy, not wild inspiration. Organized, repeated, relentless action. So the next time you feel excited to begin something new, pause. Ask yourself, do I love the grind more than the glow? Because the glow fades. But the grind? That builds legends. 2. Build a no-exit environment. Starters give themselves too many escape hatches. They say things like "I'll try," or "let's see how it goes," or "maybe I'll commit if it works." Closers burn the bridge behind them. They remove the option to quit. Not recklessly, but with purpose. They design a life where finishing isn't a maybe. It's the only way forward. What does that mean for you? It means stop keeping plan beyond standby. It means telling people your goals out loud, so accountability becomes real. It means scheduling your commitments like appointments, non-negotiable, not optional. It means tracking progress in public, not in secret. If you keep giving yourself an out, you'll always take it. The closer mindset? Lock the door behind you. And then run forward like it never existed. 3. Turn boredom into your ally. This is the secret most people never learn. Winners are not the ones who feel the most excited. They're the ones who feel the most bored and show up anyway. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It's proof that you're in the right place. Because mastery is repetition. Hill said, you must have definite plans, backed by definite purpose, and keep hammering. That hammer swing will feel dull some days. But that's when the gold gets unearthed. Your brain will beg for novelty. It will whisper, "This is too slow. Too repetitive. Let's chase something shinier." Ignore it. Repeat anyway. When you do that long enough, boredom transforms. It becomes rhythm, flow, power. And one day, you'll look up and realize you've finished what others only started. So you've stopped worshiping the spark. You've started respecting the grind. But now comes the test no one warns you about. The middle. The middle is where dreams go to die. Not because they weren't good ideas, but because most people aren't ready for the silence. At the beginning, everyone claps. You post about your new plan, likes roll in. Encouragement flows. You got this. Proud of you. You're so motivated. But 3 weeks later? Nothing. No comments. No feedback. No applause. Just you and the repetition. That's where starters fade. But finishers? They live for the silence. because they know that's where the real work begins. Here's the shift. You must learn to operate without recognition. Napoleon Hill called this faith not in the spiritual sense, but in the form of invisible belief. The kind that fuels action when results haven't shown up yet. He said, faith is the only known antidote to failure. Think about that. Not motivation. Not even skill. Faith. The belief that if you keep showing up, it will eventually pay off even when there's no sign that it's working. That's what separates the finisher from the flake. So how do you build that kind of belief? You make a promise that you can measure. Not a feeling. Not a mood. A promise. Here's an example. Every morning, before I check my phone, I will write for 20 minutes. No matter what. That's measurable. That's repeatable. And most importantly, it's winnable. Because the fastest way to lose belief is to set goals you can't hit consistently. But the fastest way to grow belief? Stack small wins. Then stack them again. And again. Until they compound into confidence. That's how invisible progress becomes visible momentum. And here's a truth nobody talks about. You will feel behind. You will see other people succeeding faster. Growing faster. Getting attention while you're still deep in the middle. And it will tempt you to pivot. To start over. To chase something new. Don't. Every time you start over, you reset your momentum to zero. You trade compounding growth for another dopamine hit. Stop doing that. Stay with what you started. Even when it's slower than you hoped. Even when it's lonelier than you expected. Because consistency compounds in silence. And when it finally breaks the surface, people will call you lucky. But you'll know the truth. You didn't get lucky. You finished what they abandoned. That's the finisher's advantage. It's not about talent. It's not about being smarter. It's not even about being more passionate. It's about being more consistent in the silence. And that is something you can control. So here's your action step today. Pick one thing you've been starting and stopping. One thing you kinda commit to, but always slip on. And decide. From this point on, you will track it. You will do it daily. You will measure it weekly. You will keep showing up even when no one claps. Because every day you finish, you build identity. And identity is what locks the door behind you. This is the second stage of the shift. From trying to training. You are not hoping anymore. You are practicing the behavior of someone who finishes. Day by day. Win by win. Let others restart. Let others chase shiny. Let others seek applause. You keep walking. One silent rep at a time. And soon, when they all stop, you'll still be going. That's what finishers do. You've made it through the noise. You've survived the silence. Now comes the next battlefield. Resistance disguised as progress. This is the trickiest phase of all, because it doesn't look like quitting. It looks like research. It looks like tweaking your system. It looks like reading another book. It looks like building a better plan. But let's be honest. You don't need another plan. You need to stick to the one you already have. Napoleon Hill called this decision the ability to act without hesitation. To move without being swayed by distractions that wear the mask of productivity. Hill studied hundreds of the most successful people of his time. His conclusion was blunt. The people who reach decisions promptly and clearly know what they want and generally get it. Starters hesitate. Closers commit. Not recklessly, but without constant second guessing. So here's your next shift. Do not chase clarity. Create it. Most people wait to feel clear before they act. That's backwards. You don't get clarity from thinking. You get clarity from movement. Every action you take either confirms or corrects your direction. But the more you hesitate, the foggier your mind becomes. Let's be real, how many times have you told yourself, I just need a bit more time to think, only to end up in the exact same place 2 weeks later? That's not thinking. That's stalling. And stalling is the #1 killer of finish lines. You want to become a finisher? Learn this truth. Perfection is the enemy of progress. If you're constantly upgrading your plan, your tools, your calendar, you're not building discipline. You're building delay. You must break the habit of starting over in disguise. Because here's the hard truth. You can't finish what you keep redefining. Every time you change the rules, you move the goalpost. And you stay stuck in preparation mode. Finishers don't obsess over getting everything right. They obsess over not quitting. And that obsession becomes their edge. So here's your tool for this phase. Decide once. Adjust rarely. Execute daily. When you make a decision, lock it in. Give it time. Let it breathe. Then execute over and over. Not emotionally. Not impulsively. Just consistently. That's where progress lives. And when you start to feel bored again, good. It means you've entered the zone where most people quit. But you? You've trained for this. Because you don't need fireworks. You need rhythm. You don't need more reasons. You need more reps. You don't need outside motivation. You've built internal obligation. That's the finisher's third gear. It's not fast. It's not flashy. It's not fun. But it's unbreakable. And that's what gets you to the other side. Let everyone else chase better tools. You're building the tool. Let everyone else ask if they're on the right path. You're walking the path. Let everyone else pause to replan. You finish what you start. You've made it through resistance. You've battled distraction disguised as research. You've stayed consistent when others would have quit. Now comes the part that almost no one is ready for. The plateau. The plateau is where momentum slows. Results stall. And your belief starts to wobble. You do everything right. You follow the system. You hit your targets. But still, nothing seems to move. Nothing seems to reward you. Nothing seems to make it worth it. This is where 95% of people give up. Not because they failed, but because they couldn't handle the weight. They traded the finish line for something faster, shinier, easier. But you? You won't. Because you understand what Napoleon Hill called the law of gestation. He'll believe that all goals have a natural incubation period. Just like seeds in the earth. Just like seasons in nature. You can't rush harvest. You can't shortcut growth. You must learn to endure the unseen. That's what real closers do. They don't panic when results pause. They don't flinch when growth feels invisible. They keep going. Because they know. Silence doesn't mean failure. It often means that something powerful is building underground. So how do you keep showing up when nothing seems to change? You change the scoreboard. Most people only track external progress. Views. Sales. Follows. Revenue. Likes. But finishers? They track internal progress too. Did I keep the promise today? Did I do what I said I would? Did I grow in patience, resilience, and grit? Those things are invisible at first. But they are the foundation of greatness. Every chapter you read in a success story, every breakthrough, every pivot, every triumph was built on months, sometimes years, of silence. And those months? That silence? That was the plateau. So instead of fearing the plateau, use it. Make it your sharpening ground. Your training camp. Your personal forge. Because when you master the plateau, you become unstoppable. Why? Because you've removed your emotions from the process. You're no longer working for applause. You're no longer chasing the next win. You're doing the work because it's who you are now. Hill called this definiteness of purpose. And when that purpose becomes identity, there's nothing that can break you. You don't try to finish anymore. You finish because that's the only option. And here's where the final trick begins. Stack identity until it tips. Every day you show up when it's hard, your brain rewires. Every task you complete without reward, your confidence builds. Every time you ignore the shiny shortcut, you lay another brick. And brick by brick, you become the person you always meant to be. Until one day, something shifts. Not in the world. In you. You don't need to finish to prove anything. You finish because it's who you are. You are no longer chasing results. You are embodying a standard. That's the final transition. From doing to becoming. From trying to living. From effort to identity. And once you cross that line, there is no going back. You become the kind of person who shows up, executes, delivers, even when it's boring, even when it's slow, even when nobody's watching. Because you know the secret that no one wants to admit. There is no moment of arrival. No finish line with flashing lights. There is only the work. And the choice to continue. So when the plateau comes, and it will, smile. Most people hate this part. But not you. You've trained for it. You've waited for it. Because you know this is the place where average dies. And mastery begins. Welcome to the plateau. Now keep walking. You've walked through the plateau. You've kept your promises in silence. You've rebuilt your identity from the inside out. Now it's time to break through. Not by sprinting. Not by forcing. But by unlocking what Napoleon Hill called accurate thinking. Here's the hard truth. Most people are not thinking. They are reacting. Reacting to noise. To fear. To comparison. To temporary feelings. But closers don't react. They respond with clarity. Hill defined accurate thinking as separating facts from fiction and then acting only on facts. In today's world, that is a superpower. Because distractions are louder than ever. Everyone is screaming for your attention. Everyone wants you to doubt, delay, or detour. That's why finishers develop what Hill called a filter of purpose. Everything that passes through your mind must be tested by one question. Does this move me closer to the finish line? Not, does it sound exciting? Not, does it give me a dopamine hit? Not, is this what other people are doing? Only this, will it help me complete the thing I promised myself? If the answer is no, it gets cut. No matter how shiny. No matter how popular. No matter how tempting. Closers protect their attention like a sacred fire. Because attention is fuel. And fuel wasted is momentum lost. So here's your next shift. Become a finisher who filters. You filter your time. You filter your inputs. You filter your energy. You don't try to do more. You try to do fewer things, done all the way. That's the opposite of how starters think. Starters chase expansion. Finishers crave contraction. Starters say yes to everything. Finishers master the art of saying no. Because they know. Every yes is a trade. When you say yes to distraction, you say no to completion. When you say yes to someone else's plan, you say no to your own mission. The more you filter, the more you finish. Let's go deeper. Most people quit when they're overwhelmed. Not because they're weak, but because their goals were never filtered through their current capacity. They overloaded their schedule. They tried to do everything, and then collapsed under the weight. You don't need more strength. You need more subtraction. Remove what doesn't matter and suddenly, finishing becomes possible. That's the fourth gear of the closer. Not speed. Not strength. Precision. The ability to zoom in so tightly on what matters that everything else becomes noise. And here's what's beautiful. Once you start filtering, your energy returns. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop leaking energy on things that don't move the needle. You simplify. You streamline. You execute. And slowly, something amazing happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You no longer make empty promises. You no longer overcommit. You no longer say yes out of guilt. You say yes with precision. And your yes start producing results. Because they are rooted in truth. That is what Hill meant by accurate thinking. Not just correct logic, but disciplined direction. Thinking that leads to action. Action that leads to completion. Completion that leads to power. And power that fuels purpose. That's the path of a finisher. Not easy. Not exciting. But exact. You don't need more information. You need more execution. And execution comes from clarity. So let the world stay loud. Let others stay scattered. You're building quietly. Precisely. With filters strong enough to hold your focus. And purpose sharp enough to cut through the noise. This is what starters never understand. Finishing isn't a product of talent. It's a product of elimination. The fewer paths you walk, the faster you reach the summit. And you? You're done wandering. You've chosen your mountain. You've burned your maps. You've silenced the noise. Now climb. With focus. With clarity. With fire no one sees, but everyone will feel when you arrive. You've chosen your mountain. You've filtered out the noise. You've moved with clarity and purpose. But now comes the test of endurance. Can you repeat? Not once. Not twice. But endlessly. This is where most people fall back. Not because they didn't want it, but because they built goals, not systems. Napoleon Hill warned of the trap of drifting. That slow fade into aimlessness caused by lack of structure, lack of rhythm, lack of standards. The antidote is rhythm. Rhythm is the heartbeat of the finisher. Rhythm beats motivation every time. Motivation is emotional. Rhythm is engineered. Motivation can't be trusted. Rhythm doesn't need trust. This is where your discipline must evolve. It's not about doing things when you feel like it. It's about designing your life so it happens even when you don't. Finishers don't wait for a better mood. They operate inside a better mechanism. You must install rituals that lock in progress. Set time for deep work, not when you're free, but because it's sacred. Attach actions to triggers: wake up, drink water, write. Build micro-routines that happen so often, they don't require thought. Because the fewer choices you make, the more energy you save for what matters. This is what turns you from occasional effort into unstoppable force. Let's go deeper. Every elite performer you admire, from entrepreneurs to athletes to artists, relies on rhythm. Their genius is not just in intensity. It's in consistency. They don't sprint and crash. They pulse. You must learn to pulse. To rise, repeat, recover, and rise again. It's not always about going harder. Sometimes, it's about going longer. Longevity beats intensity in every story worth telling. And rhythm is the bridge between the work you do today and the legacy you leave behind. But you must protect it. Your rhythm will be attacked. By distractions. By doubts. By life's endless unpredictability. That's why finishers pre-decide. They don't hope to stay on track. They automate it. They don't wonder what to do each day. They already know. Because rhythm is their weapon. and momentum is their shield. You must build it now, or drift will steal everything you started for. Stay in rhythm, because rhythm builds streaks, and streaks build belief. And belief? That's what finishes books. That's what builds businesses. That's what transforms bodies. That's what creates breakthroughs. So don't aim for perfect days. Aim for rhythmic weeks. Don't ask how to stay motivated. Ask how to stay automatic. Because when the rhythm is right, results are inevitable. And here's what's even more powerful. Rhythm doesn't just make you productive. It makes you predictable to yourself. You begin to trust your own word. You begin to believe that when you say I'll do it, you will. Not maybe. Not if convenient. Always. And in a world full of people who talk and quit, a person who simply shows up becomes unstoppable. You will be the one who keeps moving. The one who finishes when others fizzle. The one who follows through. Not because you're extraordinary, but because your rhythm made finishing normal. This is your identity now. You rise. You repeat. You recover. And you rise again. Even when you're tired. Even when it's boring. Even when no one is watching. Because this is what you do now. You finish. One rap. One ritual. One rhythm at a time. And with enough rhythm, even the impossible becomes inevitable. You've built rhythm. You've installed rituals. You've become the person who finishes. But now comes a new level of challenge. What happens when you finish one thing and still feel empty? This is the crisis no one warns you about. You climb the mountain. You plant the flag. And then, silence. No applause. No angels singing. Just space. For some, this is terrifying. They think, was that it? Why don't I feel different? Did I climb the wrong mountain? But you didn't climb the wrong mountain. You simply forgot the truth. Finishing is not the end. Finishing is the door. A door to the next version of you. A door to new responsibility. A door to higher purpose. That's why Napoleon Hill warned us. Success is never owned. It is only rented. And the rent is due every day. You don't finish once. You finish again. And again. And again. The purpose of finishing is not finality. The purpose is expansion. Not external expansion, status, awards, praise. Internal expansion, character, responsibility, mission. Because real finishers don't chase validation. They chase alignment. Alignment with who they are becoming. Alignment with their next mountain. So here's the mindset shift. Don't finish to escape. Finish to evolve. Finish to outgrow the old you. Finish to meet the future you. Because once you've finished something hard, something meaningful, something real, you now have two choices. Coast. Climb again. Most people coast. They take the win. They take the break. And never return. That's why few people build legacies. But you? You are not here for a single win. You are here for mastery. And mastery is not a straight line. It is a spiral. Every completion leads to another calling. Every calling demands a deeper version of you. You don't start from scratch anymore. You start from strength. You carry the confidence from your last finish into your next frontier. That's why we must finish strong, but never settle. Because the minute you settle, identity begins to erode. And what once made you powerful becomes a past you only talk about. Legacy builders know. You're only as strong as your last alignment. So if you feel empty after finishing, good. That means something is stirring. That space you feel? It's not failure. It's capacity. It's expansion. It's your soul preparing to hold something greater. And that greatness will not scream. It will whisper. So listen. Listen closely. To the next idea. To the next mission. To the next version of you quietly waiting to be summoned. Because finishing gives you a gift. Vision from the other side. You now know what it means to endure. To persist. To rise through boredom. To stay through resistance. And with that experience, your next climb is different. Not easier, but wiser. Now you understand rhythm. Now you understand silence. Now you understand who you are under pressure. You've seen your own potential up close. And you're no longer afraid of it. That's why the void is sacred. It's not a vacuum. It's a blank canvas. And the brush is in your hand. So what will you paint next? What truth will you live? What higher standard will you become? This is where you separate the performers from the purpose-driven. Performance ends when the applause fades. Purpose begins when no one is watching. You are not here to repeat the same victory. You are here to expand your vision. Stretch your impact. Grow your spirit. Because the finisher's journey is never one mountain. It's a range. A lifetime of peaks. Each one calling something deeper out of you. So if you're feeling restless after the finish, good. Stay open. Stay humble. Stay ready. You haven't reached the end. You've just earned the right to begin again. This time, not to prove anything, but to build something eternal. You've crossed the finish line. You've entered the space beyond. You've chosen to climb again, not for praise, but for purpose. Now comes a powerful truth. Finishers don't just build results. Finishers build people. This is the invisible transformation that begins once you've proven you can finish. Now the question becomes, can you lead others to finish too? Napoleon Hill knew this. He didn't just study success to win for himself. He studied it to pass it on. That's the next level of mastery. Turning your personal discipline into public impact. Because if you stop at personal growth, your power ends with you. But when you pour your lessons into others, your finish echoes for decades. Here's the shift. You are no longer just a practitioner. You are becoming an example. And examples don't need perfection. They need conviction. You don't lead by being flawless. You lead by being faithful to the path. By showing others what it looks like to do hard things daily. To stay when it's boring. To rise when it's heavy. To finish when it's tempting to quit. This is where your impact multiplies. It's not about what you teach. It's about what you embody. Your family sees it. Your team feels it. Your audience absorbs it. And they begin to believe something new is possible, not because you preached it, but because you lived it. This is the quiet legacy of a finisher. So what does it look like to become a builder of people? It starts with one thing, visibility. Let them see your process, not just the highlight. Let them see the rhythm, not just the win. Let them hear the silence, not just the speech. Because people don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the most consistent life. You become a guide not by shouting, but by showing. And here's what's beautiful. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need 1 million followers to impact. You just need to model discipline. In your habits. In your thinking. In your follow-through. And slowly, others begin to change, not because you told them to, but because they couldn't ignore your standard. Finishers lift the room. They calibrate the culture. They become a mirror to what's possible. And it all begins by becoming someone worth imitating. That is the new mountain. Your results are no longer just yours. They become a blueprint. For your children. for your friends, for your teammates, for everyone watching quietly from a distance. They see you finishing and wonder if they could too. And here's the hard part. You won't always see your impact. You won't always hear the thanks. You won't always know who you're inspiring. But your consistency speaks in places your words never reach. The way you show up every morning. The way you follow through when no one checks. The way you finish what others abandon. These things echo. And over time, they become louder than any speech you could give. That's why you must keep going. Not just for you, but for the ones who need to see someone live it first. When you live it, you give them permission to try. When you keep going, you prove it's possible. When you finish, they begin. So finish well. Then live it out loud. Then lift others to do the same. Because true finishing doesn't end with you. It multiplies. It spreads. It lives on. In the lives of those who once doubted but watched you stay. That's what real leadership is. Not control. Not charisma. But consistency that inspires belief. And if you live that, even once, you will change more lives than you can count. You've built yourself. You've lifted others. Now comes the deepest challenge of all. Can you finish when no one sees it but you? There is a level of finishing that goes far beyond public goals, visible achievements, or trackable habits. It's the finishing that happens in the hidden rooms of your own character. Napoleon Hill said, "Before success comes in any man's life, he is sure to meet with much temporary defeat, and perhaps some failure." But what if the defeat is internal? What if the battlefield isn't your calendar, your goals, or your to-do list? What if the war is inside? Because here's what no one tells you. Every real finisher eventually hits a point where the next step isn't tactical. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's personal. You've done the reps. You've built the rhythm. You've helped others rise. But now the only thing standing between you and your final level is you. Your self-doubt. Your sabotage. Your secret patterns that always pull you back just before the breakthrough. And this is where the bravest finishers go to work. Not on systems. Not on routines. But on self-honesty. They ask the questions no one else can answer for them. What am I still afraid of? What pain am I still hiding from? What story am I still believing that keeps me small? Because you can't finish at the highest level if you're still chained to a former identity. You must confront it. Expose it. And outgrow it. Not by yelling over it, but by facing it quietly, fully, and finally. That's what Hill meant when he said success requires burning desire. Burning doesn't happen on the surface. It happens deep beneath the skin. So if you've done the work and still feel resistance, don't panic. It means you're close. It means you've reached the gate that guards your next self. And only one thing opens it. Radical self-respect. Not arrogance. Not ego. But a quiet, solid decision that you are done betraying your future self for present comfort. This is where real finishing lives. Not in the doing. In the becoming. You don't just do hard things anymore. You become the kind of person who does. Without needing praise. Without needing proof. That is the highest finish. Because when you win the war inside, nothing outside can stop you. Let's go further. The world sees your habits. You see your motives. The world applauds your consistency. You know what it costs to keep going. And this is what matters most. You don't just finish projects. You finish patterns. You close loops that used to control you. You silence voices that used to steer you. You heal places you used to avoid. And in that healing, you access a new power. Not the power to dominate. The power to direct. To direct your focus. Your energy. your future. And when that happens, you stop chasing discipline. You become discipline. It's no longer something you do. It's someone you are. There is no higher win. There is no deeper finish. Because that's the point where you become unshakable. Where storms come and you stay. Where fear knocks and you stand. Where pressure builds and you rise. That's the moment you stop proving and start embodying. You are no longer trying to convince yourself. You are finally becoming yourself. And the world may never know the depth of that finish. But you will. And that is enough. You will walk lighter. You will speak truer. You will lead with stillness. Because you fought the final war. And won it. Alone. You've won the war within. You've finished patterns that used to rule you. You've earned a new kind of freedom. Now you face the question few ever reach. What will you do with it? This is where most people lose momentum. Not because they're tired, but because they've never trained for success. They've trained for struggle, for pressure, for the grind. But freedom? That's unfamiliar ground. And if you don't learn to navigate it with wisdom, you'll subconsciously recreate the very chaos you once fought to escape. Napoleon Hill warned us of this cycle. He wrote about people who succeed, then sabotage. People who break through, then backslide. Because they never replaced the pressure with purpose. They finished the external, but didn't install the internal. So here's the final evolution of the finisher. Finishing becomes foundation. You no longer chase goals to fill a hole. You build goals from a full place. You don't create from insecurity. You create from clarity. You don't push from fear. You move from peace. This is what Hill meant by creative vision. The ability to direct your life not reactively, but deliberately. Not emotionally, but powerfully. And here's what that looks like in action. You stop rushing. You start designing. You stop copying. You start inventing. You stop proving. You start building. From a still place. From a wise place. From a whole place. Because the ultimate finish is not just execution, it's expansion. Not a frantic climb, but a quiet reign. You are no longer running from anything. You are now building for something. That is the finisher's freedom. Not loud. Not showy. But lasting. Because the true finisher knows. The reward is not the goal. The reward is who you became to reach it. And who you now get to be forever. So protect that peace. Build from that stillness. And never forget. You already are what you used to chase. Now it's time to create what others only dream. Let's go deeper. Finishing once gave you confidence. Finishing many times gave you identity. Now it gives you influence. But it also gives you something rarer. Freedom from pressure. You no longer have to hustle for approval. You no longer chase praise to feel enough. You are grounded. Centered. Focused. And from that foundation, your work changes. It becomes timeless. It becomes bigger than you. It becomes something others can stand on. This is legacy not built from noise, but from wholeness. So here is your charge. Don't trade this piece for applause. Don't trade this rhythm for recognition. Don't trade this clarity for chaos. Create from the summit. Not to climb higher, but to build something others can see for generations. You are no longer finishing to escape. You are finishing to establish. This is the highest version of the finisher. No more proving. No more chasing. Only building. From rhythm. From wisdom. From stillness. That is your new strength. And it cannot be taken. It cannot be shaken. It cannot be bought or borrowed. It was earned. Step by step. Finish by finish. Battle by battle. And now, you carry it in everything you do. So the question is no longer, can you finish? It's now. What will you build with what you've become? The answer will echo for a lifetime. Choose wisely. You've built in silence. You've created from clarity. You've anchored your life in rhythm, not rush. Now comes the return. The return is not a fallback, it's a rising. It's when the one who has finished, grown, and expanded steps back into the world. Not to be seen, but to serve. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he described success not just as achievement, but as contribution. Because the highest purpose of personal power is shared impact. And here's the truth. Most people never reach this stage. They get caught in cycles of gain, chasing more, proving more, accumulating more. But the finisher has learned, more is not the answer. The answer is deeper. Deeper into presence. Deeper into purpose. Deeper into legacy. Because at this level, you don't build to impress. You build to install. You install truth into culture. You install trust into people. You install systems that outlast you. You become an anchor in a drifting world. Not because you're loud, but because you're consistent. And in your consistency, others find direction. They feel safer. They feel stronger. They believe bigger. Not because you forced them, but because you reflected what was already inside them. That's the finisher's return. The return to service, to stewardship, to seed sowing. You are no longer planting for yourself. You are planting for a future you may never see. And that, truly, is legacy. To build what others enjoy. To speak what others remember. To live in a way that leaves a pattern. This is your offering now. Not performance, but permanence. Not activity, but alignment. Not dominance, but direction. And you don't need a platform to do this. You only need presence. Because at this level, even your silence speaks. Even your stillness teaches. Even your discipline, felt, not flaunted, becomes a compass for those still wandering. This is the power of the finisher who returns. You no longer rise to be celebrated. You rise so others can rise too. And here's what makes this rare. You begin to build for people who may never know your name. You start making decisions that won't benefit you directly. You become intentional about things that take longer than a lifetime to finish. That's the shift. From short-term gain to generational impact. You are no longer living a career. You are living a calling. And calling doesn't expire. Calling doesn't shrink. Calling doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Calling asks you to show up even when the harvest won't be yours to reap. And when you live that way, people feel it. Not because of the words you say, but because of the weight you carry. The way you walk. The peace in your decisions. The fire in your stillness. You have nothing left to prove. Because you have someone to become for others. That's the return. Not the hero with fireworks, but the guide with a map. Not the star of the story, but the one who teaches others to write their own. This is who you are now. This is what you do now. This is the season you've earned. So return with reverence. Return with clarity. Return with fire. And walk forward knowing that everything you finish now is the beginning of someone else's story. This is it. The final step. The last principle. The closing note in a journey of becoming. You've finished goals. You've finished fears. You've finished the version of you that only started but never completed. Now comes the moment of truth. Can you live finished? Because the goal was never just to complete something once. The goal was to become the kind of person who never leaves what matters undone. And that's what you've done. You've closed loops. You've built rhythm. You've outlived doubt. You've broken through comfort. And now you are ready for the rarest gift of all. Peace with the process. Napoleon Hill taught us that the ladder of success is never crowded at the top. And now you understand why. Because the top is not a destination, it's a mindset. It's the mind of someone who no longer needs results to know they're winning. Someone who no longer fears slow days, because they trust compound growth. Someone who no longer panics in quiet seasons, because they know the seed is working even when no one sees it sprouting. That's the finisher. Not the loudest. Not the fastest. Not the flashiest. But the most faithful. Faithful to the system. Faithful to the habit. Faithful to the identity. And this is your closing reminder. Stay with it. Not because you're behind, but because you're becoming. Keep showing up. Keep executing. Keep walking. Even when no one claps. Even when others quit. Even when your mind tells you it doesn't matter. Because now you know the truth. Finishing isn't about what happens on the outside. It's about who you refuse to stop being on the inside. That's the fire you carry. And it will never go out. Let's go deeper. You are now the finisher who walks without noise. The builder who no longer checks who's watching. The leader who carries no title but holds deep trust. You don't race anymore. You don't compare. You don't fear the gap between where you are and where you're going. Because you understand. The gap closes with rhythm. And rhythm lives inside you now. You've redefined what it means to win. Not applause. Not outcomes. But alignment. You live on purpose now. With structure. With stillness. With a soul that is steady. And now, you're ready to walk forward into the rest of your life. Not like the old you. Not like the spark chaser. But like the steady flame. The one who keeps showing up. The one who keeps planting. The one who keeps finishing. Even when the world forgets to clap. Even when the finish line is invisible. Even when the next chapter feels uncertain. Because now, you don't need certainty. You have something better. You have rhythm. You have identity. You have conviction. And conviction finishes what emotion starts. So here's your final truth. The one this whole journey has whispered all along. You were never meant to be a starter. You were always designed to be a finisher. A builder. A closer. A quiet storm that completes what others abandon. And the world doesn't need another flashy spark. It needs a few more flames. Lit from within. Protected by habit. Fueled by purpose. That's you now. So walk. Not to prove anything. Not to arrive anywhere. But to continue. To finish. To model what's possible. And as you walk, others will follow. Not because you asked them to, but because you became the kind of person worth following. You are no longer chasing momentum. You are momentum. No longer hoping to become. You are. And from this moment forward, you don't just start strong. You finish stronger. Always. You stayed. You heard the final truth: finishing is not a result. It's a rhythm. And now you're still here. That means something. Because most people leave when the credits roll. You stayed when the message settled. And in that stillness, a new question rises. What if you weren't just meant to finish goals? What if you were meant to finish generations? You see, when Napoleon Hill wrote his philosophy of achievement, he wasn't just speaking to one life. He was writing a code. A code that, if lived fully, could outlive the person practicing it. You're now holding that code. So what will you do with it? Let's go deeper. Let's keep walking. You've already proven you can finish for yourself. You've already proven you can hold discipline when others let go. You've already crossed lines that others never dare step over. But now, what you do next isn't about your name. It's about your echo. Because the truth is, every finished task casts a shadow. Every finished promise rewires someone watching. Every person you become quietly gives permission to someone else. That is how finishers create legacy. Not through loud proclamations, but through quiet cycles, completed over and over again. When you become the finisher who keeps their word, your child learns what trust feels like. When you become the finisher who doesn't disappear when it gets hard, your team feels what leadership looks like. When you become the finisher who honors the process, your partner, your friend, your community learns what presence really means. You're no longer just showing up for results. You're showing up because your rhythm builds the world around you. That's power. But it's also responsibility. You don't need to be perfect. But you must be present. You don't need to finish everything flawlessly. But you must not abandon the things that shape your future. Because the people closest to you, they're not listening to what you say. They're absorbing what you finish. So let this be your next evolution. Don't just finish to feel fulfilled. Finish to form the future. Finish to plant patterns others can walk on. Finish to set a temperature that others can grow in. Finish because your consistency is contagious. And you might not see it today. But years from now, someone will sit at a table you built. Someone will hold courage you passed on. Someone will rise, because you didn't fall when it was easier to quit. This is how finishers become forces. Not through one big breakthrough, but through daily, repeated integrity. You now carry something rare. Not just habits, but alignment. Not just goals, but groundedness. You are no longer in pursuit. You are in position. And from this position, you build not just systems. You build stories. You become someone your future self thanks. And someone your future family will follow. So here's your charge. Keep finishing. But widen your frame. You're no longer writing a to-do list. You're writing an inheritance. Every loop you close becomes a path. Every task you complete becomes a compass. Every cycle you master becomes an invitation. An invitation for someone else to believe. To begin. And maybe, finally, to finish. You're no longer just finishing goals. You're finishing legacies. And now, you've entered a rare space, where completion becomes culture. This is the leadership most never reach. Not because they're not capable, but because they never stayed long enough to be transformed. Napoleon Hill didn't just outline principles for personal gain. He outlined blueprints for transformation. And transformation doesn't end with the individual. It flows into every system you touch, every room you enter, every person you lead. You're no longer just a finisher. You're now a finisher who builds finishers. This is the multiplier stage. You've gone from student to steward, from follower to foundation, from one who executes to one who establishes. This is where your rhythm becomes a structure. People don't just see your results. They start to live by your example. They use your consistency as calibration. Not because you're trying to be a leader, but because your follow-through is undeniable. Let's go deeper. We live in a world full of starters. Big plans. Grand announcements. Quick exits. But a world starving for finishers. So imagine what happens when one person, not louder, but steadier, shows up and stays. Builds and repeats. finishes, and models. That person becomes the gravity others move around. You are that gravity now. You're not just helping people work better. You're helping them believe again. Believe in process. Believe in discipline. Believe in integrity. That is what finishing creates. A ripple that recalibrates environments. Your standards shift the room. Your rhythm realigns timelines. Your trustworthiness rebuilds belief. This is how finishers shape culture. Through consistent proof. Not slogans. Not hype. But patterns so strong they can't be denied. And here's what's powerful. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have followers. You just need to be rooted. Because culture isn't created from stages. It's built from systems. And your system is now solid. Your rhythms are real. Your identity is unshakable. That makes you dangerous to distraction. You no longer get pulled into noise. You don't lose weeks to indecision. You don't question whether it's working. Because your rhythm tells you it is. And over time, that rhythm spills outward. People start to copy your consistency. They build around your calendar. They respond to your energy. And slowly, without even realizing it, you're building something larger than yourself. You're building an ecosystem where habits don't just live in journals. They live in meetings, in conversations, in expectations, in culture. You are now a culture builder. Not just for your family, not just for your team, but for every space you enter. Because wherever you go, you finish. And where finishing happens often enough, order appears, excellence follows, and others rise. This is the reward of the long game. Not praise, not medals, but replication. You don't just get results. You build environments where results become normal. That's what real leaders do. They finish so others can begin. They execute so others can believe. They build so others can live differently. That's who you are now. That's what you bring. So walk into every room. Not to dominate, but to anchor. And wherever you go, let the culture rise around your rhythm. You've walked the entire path. From spark to rhythm. From habits to identity. From pressure to purpose. Now comes the true arrival. Not at a destination, but into a role few dare hold. You are now a system. A living, breathing example of structure, discipline, alignment, and power. You are no longer reacting to life. You are building frameworks for it. And that is the final transformation. From finisher to architect. You don't just finish what you start. You design what you repeat. You build what others follow. The world looks for motivation. You embody momentum. The world looks for hacks. You run on habits. The world looks for shortcuts. You walk the long road with confidence. That is what makes you different. You are not just organized. You are operational. Your values have become rituals. Your intentions have become infrastructure. Your direction has become design. Let's go deeper. A system is not rigid. A system adapts. And now, you have become adaptable. Without losing alignment. You can handle chaos without collapsing. You can stretch without snapping. You can shift without losing your signal. That is high-level mastery. You've become the kind of person who can sustain pressure. Not just survive it, stabilize others within it. You bring rhythm into wildness. You bring order into overwhelm. You bring simplicity into stress. That is the final power of the finisher. Not to end more things, but to establish environments where finishing is the norm. You now create space. Space for growth. Space for excellence. Space for others to rise without fear. And you do it without needing attention. Because your standard speaks louder than your words. Your execution is louder than your energy. You no longer just chase purpose. You become the container that holds it. Let that settle in. You are now the kind of person who creates containers for growth. Not just for yourself. For your team. For your family. For the world around you. You are no longer a firework. You are a furnace. Consistent. Steady. Unshakable. And people feel it. Even when they can't name it. Even when they don't fully understand it. They feel safer near you. More focused near you. More honest around you. Because your presence is calibrated by completion. You don't bluff. You don't flinch. You don't back out. You finish. And what you finish becomes foundation. That's how systems are born. That's how legacy is built. Through one decision repeated. One standard held. One rhythm practiced again and again and again. You are no longer a seeker. You are a signal. A signal to the world that it's possible. To stay. To rise. To complete. To lead. So here we are. 15 chapters deep. 15 truths embedded. One path walked all the way to the edge of transformation. And now you face only one final choice. Will you stay that signal? Not just today. Not just this week. But for the rest of your life. Because this world is full of sparks. But we're short on systems. It's full of voices. But hungry for rhythm. It's full of ambition. But empty of architects. You are that architect now. Don't just use the system. Be the system. Live it. Model it. Build it. And wherever you go, let finishing be the culture. Let consistency be the ground. Let clarity be the light. Because the world doesn't need another starter. It needs someone like you. Someone who walks what they teach. Who carries what they've built. And who finishes again and again and again. And from this moment forward, you don't just start strong. You finish stronger. Always. And now, I want to hear from you. What's something you've been trying to finish, but always find yourself restarting? What part of this journey spoke to you the most? Leave a comment below and share your story. Not just for you, but for someone else scrolling through who needs to know they're not alone. And if this message lit a fire in you, help it light someone else's path. Tap like to show you're in. Subscribe so you never miss the next spark of discipline. Save this video when you need to come back to it. And share it with someone who always starts, but needs help finishing. This isn't just a video. It's a movement. And you're a part of it now. Keep walking. Keep finishing. I'll see you in the next one.